Well, I think there's a lot more fear around AI in the marketing industry than there should be. A lot of people are very afraid that, as you say, it's going to replace jobs and things like that. I mean, all these platforms, they've been using AI for years and years and years. That's how a Facebook ad campaign will optimize. It's AI that is using all the various data points to get you results, and that's been the case for more than a decade. Google Ads is going to be a similar process.
All right, so today we have on our show a guy that I've been following for quite a while on YouTube. And unlike many of the YouTube gurus and content creators where it's 45 minutes of just fluff and maybe a little bit of essence, this guy, every video that he posts is to the point and he brings so much value to the table. So I'm really happy to have with us Ben Heath. Ben, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me and for the warm introduction. That's very nice of you to say.
Listen, man, we've been tech-savvy people. We're watching and consuming a lot of information and a lot of content. And like you just see this, like you see the difference between people who are just trying to self-promote and just trying to fill that, fill that space of 15, 20 minutes, no matter what, versus people who are actually there to provide value. And this is why I reached out and why I asked if you're willing to come on the show, because in my program and in my line of thinking is just give me like what I need to do. Don't give me the theory behind it. Don't give me the fluff. Just give it to me straight, what I need to do. I'll make the adjustment for whatever service or product I'm using. That's okay, but we're intelligent people. And most content creators are not like that. Most content creators are just like trying to push 45 minutes, 25 minutes, however long, just to, I don't know, as if there's a magic to content being promoted by the YouTube algorithm if it's longer than X amount of minutes, where I don't believe it's so. Your content reaches tens of, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of people, and it's just by providing value. So I wanted to really mention this and really applaud you for your content, man.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you very much. I think, yeah, I mean, YouTube does promote longer content, but only if people stick around and watch it. And they'll only watch it if it's providing value. And maybe you can get someone to click on a video today, but if you want them to watch one again next week and the week after and so on, you have to provide value in that. So, it's like with running ad campaigns, same sort of setup. The best ads win, the best content wins, and it's worth the extra effort to make sure that what you're putting in front of people that you want to market to is good quality.
Absolutely. So in terms of YouTube, as you probably know, but maybe our listeners don't. So it's like you said, it's longer content, that's fine. But the real factor is how long people stick around. How long people stick around and whether they go into your next video afterwards, so they stick around with your channel. And that's where the real magic happens. This is where you can get on people's home feed. This is where you get on the suggestion tab. This is where the real magic happens. And if it's nothing valuable, especially in our industry where it's a lot of educational stuff, and it's not like Mr. Beast, where it's more of like, hey, let's capture people's attention with some sort of crazy raffle or whatever it is. It's about value at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And there are things you can do to make it more entertaining and try and keep people around and insert little jokes here and there, memes and things like that. But that's sort of the extra that maybe just lifts it a little bit. The most important thing is the value. And I think as well, whenever I think about content from that point of view where you're trying to teach something, it's okay if it's a bit more dense and attracts a smaller audience, if then the people that watch it, it has much more of an impact on them. Because you can keep things really basic, go really broad with it, try and get as many people to watch it as possible, but does it actually have that impact? People get that much from it? Probably not. Whereas in my case, if I keep things a bit more specific, a little bit more dense, then I know the people that actually consume that content can then go ahead and implement based on what I've said, and that's really useful.
Love it, love it. So I want to start off because I saw a recent tweet from you that you mentioned that you're a college dropout, and and this is maybe the best decision that you've made. So let's talk a little bit about your origin story. How did you become this YouTube sensation? How this whole fascination with paid ads? Because I know now you do Facebook ads and Google ads. How this whole journey of yours started?
Yeah, so probably started before I went to university. I took like a gap year after school, and I was working in a shop for most of the year before I went traveling at the end of it. And when I was working in there, one of the owners of the shop, he used to, as like a little side business, he used to sell things on eBay and Amazon. And this would have been 2010, 2011, when he was doing this. So a bit of a different landscape to what it is today. But he was doing this, and I knew about it because he was getting me to package the products and ship them. And so I got an idea. And I thought this was really cool that he was making more money just selling these things than I was in like a full-time job being paid like £6 an hour, whatever it was, to work in the shop. So I thought, okay, I want to do something like that. And then I did. I started trying to replicate what he did, and I did various sort of little entrepreneurial things like that, trying to sell products and stuff. During like sort of first year of university, and I quickly found out that just because you have a product doesn't mean anyone's going to buy it. You need to know how to market, how to advertise. So I bought a course on Google Ads. Facebook ads wasn't even really a thing then, and then sort of learned some skills, played around with some stuff. I didn't have like a major success before deciding to drop out. I wasn't one of those where I had the business already running and it was an easy decision. It was more of a, oh, I really want to do this having my own business thing because I enjoy it, even though it's not really working out quite so great yet. And I really don't want to do this corporate job, which is what I was doing, a business degree, and that was what it was all designed to funnel you into, was a corporate career. And I was like, no, I don't want to go do that. So I decided to drop out and carried on with sort of entrepreneurial endeavors. Nothing really worked. Things worked a little bit, trying to sell various products and things like that. My mum had an interior design company at the time that was struggling to get in new clients, and she knew I was learning all about how to run online advertising campaigns. And she said, oh, can you help me out? Can you run some campaigns? And I did, and they worked really, really well. And then I ended up doing that alongside other things for probably a good 18 months, a couple of years, and then I decided, well, if these campaigns are working so well for my mum's business, then I could offer this as a service to other businesses, and that's when I started doing that. So that was right at the end of 2015, so almost 8 years ago, that I started offering at that time Facebook and Google Ads as a service to other companies. And then it was probably 2, maybe 3 years after that I discovered that YouTube would be a good avenue for me to pursue and a good way for me to get new clients. And I kind of found that out accidentally. I just created a bunch of video ads that I was running as Facebook ads to try and get Facebook ads clients. And I thought, well, I've got these videos anyway, and they were value pieces. I might as well stick them up on YouTube, and I did, and I got a few leads from it, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should do more of this. So yeah, and then that's been sort of the last 5 years or so has been more or less weekly uploads on my channel.
Amazing. And right now you have how many followers across your media empire?
Across social channels, it's almost 600,000.
Wow.
Which is, not enormous, but for for my niche, which is pretty small, right, of people interested in running Facebook ad, Google ad campaigns, it's pretty big. About 180 something thousand of those are on YouTube, and I've got a big Facebook group and a few others. So it's just under 600,000 in total.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And in terms of YouTube, how was your, how did it go for you? Was it an overnight success story? Is this something that you like uploaded a bunch of videos before you saw some traction? What was your experience with the YouTube videos at first?
Yeah, so I know that the number of views I get really correlates to the number of leads that we generate from that platform. So I know that that's a ratio. Obviously, I get a lot more views now than I did 5 years ago, definitely, but even a lot more than 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So I uploaded those first few ones that I just created for Facebook, uploaded on YouTube, and I got a couple of leads, but they didn't get that many views. It might have been, I don't know, 500 views or something across them all. And I got a few leads from it, and I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. If I can get more views, I can probably get more leads. So there wasn't like a real taking off. It was more just like a very steady. At the beginning, there were hardly any views, but I would get leads from it. And I just sort of thought, if I can get 100 times, 10 times as many views, 100 times as many views, am I going to get 10 times as many leads? Probably, and more or less, yes. So it was very steady. I mean, I would say that and this happens with any sort of digital audience building, it seems, is that progress always speeds up. So if I look at probably 40% of my subscribers I got on my YouTube channel are in the last year, even though I've been doing it 5 years, right? So it just carried on speeding up and speeding up and speeding up. But yeah, there wasn't like one moment when it really went, aha. It was just, it looked like it was really good at the beginning and just carried on being that way as it slowly progressed.
It accumulates, and I love it because this is something that I explain to a lot of my students and people in my program is don't think about how good your content is, the first piece of video. It's more about consistency and more about this little changes, these little tweaks that you make to your video, just 1% improvement at a time, and you'll see that overall it will just compound, and you see enormous value from it in terms of brand recognition, in terms of leads coming in, and in the fact that I have a garage door company that I work with in Houston, Texas, and he told me, and again, like one of the things that we teach in our program is how to run Google ads, how to run Facebook ads. And he told me, listen, you won't believe it. I just uploaded 2 videos to my YouTube channel and I got 2 closed sales from it. And it was the easiest sale out of them all. Why? Because that person already knew me.
Yeah.
He told me I wanted a new door. I said, okay, it will be around 2K, no problem. When can you come? It was as easy as that. No price comparison, no nothing. Why? Because they know you and they want to work with you. So these things, even though at first it's a rocky start, it's not something that's easy, especially being in front of a camera, where for you it seems like natural, and I'm sure it wasn't that way right from the get-go, but
No.
you get better over time. And if this is one of the most important pieces of your lead generation in your business, just freaking do it. Overcome whatever fears and whatever concerns you have, and just do it.
Yeah, just do it and just keep going. And you're dead right about just little improvements. And the way I look at it now is every month I have I take like half a day and I just sort of think about how could I improve the quality of my content. It's like scheduled in every month. So I think, okay, is there anything to my recording equipment, or are there topics that I want to tackle, or things like that? And then we go through those individual things. So I do think it's it's one of those where people will have heard this advice, but they find it difficult to actually take it because they start and their first ones are rubbish and it doesn't gain any traction. They think, well, what's the point? But just being willing to keep going, just even if it doesn't get, you don't feel like it's getting much better, just being willing to keep going, you're going to be ahead of 90% of the competition after just a couple months because most people are going to stop. And then you just keep going, keep going, keep going, and it gets there. And on the flip side, like once you are in a position where you've got something that's working really well, because it took time and was difficult to achieve, that provides you protection. So now it's like people tell me they're all the time. There are new YouTube channels that we started around Facebook advertising, for example, and it's like if they want to really compete with mine, some will, but the vast, vast, vast majority won't because they just won't keep going. It's like okay, make 500 videos over the next 5 years, and then we'll see where you're at. So there's real positives to it being that way if you can just force yourself to do it and get better. And I said I take out like half a day every month to really brainstorm, but even without that, it's just very natural that you will try and improve performance, that you will look at various elements, you check your metrics, you see, how is this video this week performing in comparison to, okay, yeah, that one didn't do as well, I wonder why, right? And you just learn, you get experience, you get a sense of these things.
And you're also following other content creators where you see that the quality of production nowadays, it's unbelievable. Like to think that these are independent content creators, like some of those productions, they look like straight out of a Hollywood movie. There's this one guy who I love watching his video. His channel is Whistle and Dizzle. Do you know this guy?
Okay. No, I don't think I've heard of that.
So he lives in the Midwest, I think in Indiana, and he likes taking big trucks and just wrecking them, and he takes like a G-Wagon right. and just destroys it and checks its real durability and like crazy stuff. And you watch the quality of production and you see that almost every dollar that he makes out of this YouTube channel, he puts it back right into the business. And I think that if there's one thing to really think about, especially and most of the people know or heard about Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast reinvests almost all the capital that he makes, and he makes millions of dollars from his YouTube channel. He reinvests almost everything back into the business. So the more you make, the more you reinvest, the better the videos, the better the content quality, the better the production, the better everything. And it just, like you said, it's compounding.
Yeah.
So right now, Ben, what is your main focus today in terms of the business? So the business evolved from working with small service businesses like your mom's, and then it grew to what?
Yeah, so we still work with a number of smaller businesses. Obviously, the budget ranges are higher now. Like we have currently have a 3K per month minimum budget requirement, and our fees are going to be on top of that. So that rules out the really small businesses. But we're still, our average business we work with is still going to be probably less than 50 people in terms of employees, things like that. Still relatively small, medium-sized businesses. But we work with all sorts. We work with e-commerce businesses, software businesses, service businesses. Any type of business you can imagine, really. We've run ad campaigns for and have a whole bunch on our books at the moment.
Amazing. And how big is the team?
It's about 30 people.
Wow.
So it seems kind of crazy. Right? Obviously, it was just me for years, and then it was just me and my wife, and then me, my wife, and an assistant, and then just keep adding and growing and building out more capacity to be able to deliver on the client work.
And how's that experience been like? That like from a content creator / service provider for businesses, your role has changed a lot, right? So now it's managing a team of a few dozen people. like how has this transition been to you? Was it natural for you to be on the business manager side, or are you more of a let me do the things myself because I know how to do it best?
um, it certainly wasn't natural and it's hard, and I've probably kind of come full circle now. So you start off obviously doing everything yourself, and then you start building out the team, and there's sort of difficult split responsibilities where you're trying to get things sorted on the content side, you're trying to manage people, you're trying to train. That was all very difficult. I would not say I'm like a natural manager at all. I prefer the content creation side of things. I think I'm a lot better than that. And the key for me was just to get big enough where I could have other people to manage the team, basically, which is where I'm at now. So that's why I feel like I've come full circle in that I started out creating content, trying to get clients, and now I've come to a point where my main focus is on content creation, and I get to be a marketer, which is what I really like to do, and what I feel like I'm really good at, not be a business owner. So I have people to manage all that, and there's been lots of challenges, and whenever you hire people and you hire lots of them, some are going to do things you don't want them to do, and you're going to have to deal with that, and there are difficulties there, and there's been some changes to structure. We were fully remote for a while, not for a long time, and now we're sort of transitioning more to have like an office and people in a physical location, and
Really,
feel like
that's
there's more
fascinating.
advantages to that. Yeah, yeah, I feel like there are more advantages to that, so we're sort of heading in that direction. But yeah, there's been a lot of challenges around building a team like that, more than I would have anticipated.
Yes, yes, and I think that from what I see, and the business owners, first of all, me myself, like this is a huge challenge, especially when you're hiring sales reps and when you're trying to hire customer success. Like you want people to know the product as good as you, because otherwise, how can people
Yeah,
trust that trust the brand, and you built the brand for such a long time that you want to keep the reputation, and you want to keep the standards at a certain level. Um, but another thing that I found that it's really interesting when working with a lot of, and I work with much smaller uh, business owners. So you're talking about less than 50. For me, it's between that one guy in the truck to, let's say, 5 to 10 people max. Like those are really the scope of service clients that I'm working with. And a lot of them are coming out of the trade itself. So they were the locksmith,
yeah,
they were the roofer, they were that plumber, and now they build a business. And what they envisioned was, oh, I'm a good plumber. I have a business. Like I can do it on my own. I don't need to work for another guy. Where when you're a business owner, your required skill sets are so much different than just being the technician
yeah,
itself. So right now you need to know
yeah,
HR, and you need to know finance, and you need to know sales, and you definitely need to know marketing and lead generation, because if you don't have that, you practically don't have a business. So
yeah,
it's a transition where a lot of times people for a long period of time refuse to acknowledge and just try to delegate, in my opinion, way too early before knowing what
yeah,
needs to be done. Because I believe delegation is key, but only after you master a skill to an efficient level where no one can bullshit you around. So you don't need to be a
yes,
CPA, but you need to know your numbers, and you need to know your expenses, and you need to know, the overall understanding of a business profit margins, and understand when you're on the safe side and when you're not. Same goes to sales. Same goes to marketing,
yeah,
and and I think that this is my biggest issue with the agency world. And before we went live, I told you this. In the marketing agency world, a lot of the marketing companies prey own those smaller companies that have no idea, and they come with this robust offers, and they come with this, crazy guarantees. And oh yeah, just give me 3 months, just give me 6 months, just give me a year. You'll see what happened. And these business owners who have no idea how things work say, okay, let me just don't think about this. I have now a guy I'm paying for $1,000, $1,500, $2K a month to deal with this stuff. And they eventually get nothing or close to nothing. So I want to hear your take on the marketing agency world in general. Obviously, you run a marketing agency, but there's a difference between the people who are catering for that, higher clientele, and the people who are catering for that 500 to 2K a month retainer marketing agency. So I want to understand from your perspective how you see it. Do you see what I'm talking about, or is it just me?
No, definitely. Oh yeah, absolutely see what you're talking about. I think because there's no real barrier to entry, anyone can start a marketing agency. They can say they have the expertise. There's no required qualifications or anything like that, and it means that there are lots of people that really don't know what they're doing. I've seen many comments on my videos or things like that from people who are asking questions. So they say things like, "My client has this problem. How do I fix it?" And a lot of the times you see those questions. Not always. Some of them are complex, but some of the questions are really basic. And you think, if you don't know how to fix that, you should not have a client. You don't have the skills yet to go ahead and do that. So I think this probably applies to all industries, but certainly applies to the marketing agency world. There are really good marketing agencies out there that can make a huge difference to your business and help you succeed, but they are the minority. That might be 1 in 10, 1 in 20. So I think whenever you're hiring for something like that, I think people need to go into it aware of that. So try and do your best to identify, is this one of the good ones? Have they got case studies and examples of good work and things like that? And then also be willing to go, okay, I don't think these guys are working out. I'm going to go work with someone else. And that ties into your point previously where you said you don't need to be a marketing expert to hire a marketing agency and it go well. But what you do need to know is some basic KPIs, and you need to know, what does progress look like? Are we making progress? Are we working towards something good here? Because I think that's where we see a lot of clients, if they don't understand that, often they can go the other way, where progress might be being made, but they haven't seen it massively show up yet, and they need to give it more patience, but they just don't know what those metrics are to be able to track. So I think if you do have an understanding and you can't have, it makes such a big difference, just like you said. Now, I think that applies to all sorts. I have accountants, I have bookkeepers, but I do understand the basics of, like, I know that our margin is important. I know that's something that I need to monitor, make sure that we don't overinflate our expenses. These things are some things that I'm always going to need to be aware of. And I think if you're hiring a marketing agency as a business owner, that's one of them. Ask them, what does success look like? What metrics are we working towards here? How can I tell if we're making progress or not? And ask them ahead of time so that you can then compare when you're going through, and you can see how that looks in comparison to what they originally said.
And maybe the most basic and fundamental thing for you to do when you're doing your due diligence and when you're doing your research is go on freaking YouTube and see if they have content. Like that's the easiest way to validate whether someone is a bullshitter or they're the real thing.
Yeah.
Do they have presence, or they have just these automated videos, AI generated videos that don't say anything, and then you know that this is most likely a sketchy company. Like for me, this is like elementary 101 research. Do that. See who these guys are. If they have videos that bring value, if they're been consistent for at least few months, if not few years, and that would give you a good like a good taste of who these companies are, and if you want to work with them.
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's actually a way that I will look for service providers. I will find people, okay, who's been creating content for years in this and is doing a good job, and then do they offer that as a service? If they do, great. It's a really good way to find people.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, we're in 2023. Two main questions that are on everyone's plate. AI, what's its role in this day and age? Does it come to replace marketing agencies? How do you see it fit in your business and in your line of work? And we'll start with this one and then we'll move to the next. But that's something that I want to hear from you, how you see AI and this whole revolution that we're undergoing.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot more fear around AI in the marketing industry than there should be. A lot of people are very afraid that, as you say, it's going to replace jobs and things like that. I mean, all these platforms, they've been using AI for years and years and years. That's how a Facebook ad campaign will optimize. It's AI that is using all the various data points to get you results, and that's been the case for more than a decade. Google Ads is going to be a similar process. So what we're seeing at the moment is very much a continuation of what's been going on since forever. Now, it's got more attention now because ChatGPT came out and everyone sort of lost their mind about it, and then it brought the focus onto all the other places where AI has been the case. But if we say, for example, like the AI that governs the machine learning process, let's say, that optimizes a Facebook ad campaign and tries to get you, say, as many purchases as possible, as many leads as possible, that is much better today than it was 10 years ago. But there's not less demand for marketers now than there were 10 years ago. There's a lot more demand. More people use the platform. So I think whatever AI developments occur, they're going to be available to everyone. And if they're available to everyone, that means that you're still going to need to find a way to differentiate yourself, because only a small minority are going to really succeed. That's just always the way it is with all these things. So you're going to need either to do it yourself or have someone that can give you a competitive advantage and find a way to differentiate your stuff. And if it's an AI tool that's incorporated into Google Ads, for example, if everyone's got it, then the whole bar is just going to be raised. It's not going to make them win and go, I don't need my agency anymore. You're still going to need people to do that. I mean, who knows, in say 20 years time, maybe it's a case where the AI runs everything and it's just literally the only thing you compete on is the product itself, like whoever's just got the best product or service. I kind of doubt it, but I cannot see that happening in the short to medium term. We've been using AI for years and years and years.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you, and I think that certain jobs and certain roles would be eliminated, and certain things would just evolve and grow, and new products and new services and new basically new services will just come out of this revolution. And your job as business owners, and especially marketers, if you're listening to this, is just be on top of everything that's happening. And it's very exciting times because like for me, if I'm off Twitter for 2 days, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many new things now. There's there's so many development because, I've been doing SEO since 2009. And for the longest time, it was just like, it was very, very, very steady. It's there are little improvements. And over the past few months, man, it's just like, it's been crazy. Like the level of changes and like everything is just so quick nowadays. So there's a lot of new things that are coming out, and yes, you need to be on top of it, but I don't think that the competition in 5-10 years would be solely on the product. Still need good copyright. You still need good creative. You still need to build your brand recognition and have a strong affiliation with your audience. There are things which, as long as we as human beings are um, the leading intelligent force in this world, yes, there are things that would outbeat algorithms in terms of just the comparison side, and that doesn't mean that you don't need to know and understand it, but is don't be a doomsday person who's like, okay, this is going to be the end of the world, because maybe it is, but we can't do anything about it. And don't be like, it won't do any change, because that won't help your business, and you just get stuck behind like these guys who for the longest time didn't open up a website because they had food traffic coming to their store. So that's really my take.
Yeah, I think that's smart. These are tools to be used. You don't want everyone else using them and you not using them, that's for sure. You want to use them. You want to learn how to use them. They're going to help you. But, that's the same with all technological advancements. That's been the case, especially in digital marketing. Of all industries to be worried about AI replacing jobs is like, well, this whole thing was created because of technological advancements in the first place. Like, all these digital marketing jobs didn't exist 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. So a few did 20 years ago, but not many. And they were created because of the advancements in technology allowed us to do this. And it'll be exactly the same again. You'll have ChatGPT specialists that can get the best out of it from a copywriting standpoint. That'll be all sorts. So yeah, it'll change, but everything will keep going, I'm pretty sure.
What about some future or current new and upcoming platforms? Do you see rise to, obviously, that there's the big, I don't know, like the big four, the Google, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Do you see working with big budgets? Do you see new upcoming trends or platforms that more advertisers coming to that field, and more people are leaning towards those?
No, I don't think we are. If I think of 10, 15 years ago, it felt like there were new social media platforms, new places for potentially advertisers to end up on, coming up all the time. And that really feels like it's slowed down a lot. I think all the big social media companies figured, well, if there's something new and interesting, we'll just copy that feature, and we've already got 1 billion users, therefore, like, this new thing will never gain traction. So I think the incumbents are very much here to stay, probably maybe with the exception of TikTok, because I think there's going to be government bans on that. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the US outright bans TikTok. They've already taken a number of steps in that direction, various locations, and government employees can't have it on their devices and things like that. And if the US does it, then I think a lot of European countries will follow suit. So, but that's much more of a geopolitical thing, really, than it is, I wouldn't say that means that's going to happen to Meta or Google or anything like that. So I think we are going to be end up with just a few social channels that everyone consumes, and people can interact with them in very different ways, which didn't used to be the case. So people used to need to have a different app, a different platform to do different things, and now you can do so much of it within the same thing. Like, take Instagram, for example. Some people are going to scroll through their feed. Some people are never going to look at their feed, and they're just going to look at people's stories. Other people are going to spend all their time in Reels. So that's the same app, but people behaving with it in 3 very different ways in those examples. And I think that will continue to be the case. So I think the incumbents are here to stay by the looks of things.
And what about Twitter? Do you see a shift, I don't know, in the demand from your clients of, hey, let's maybe try running some Twitter ads, or you still don't see it as a big enough audience for the type of services that your clients are running?
Yeah, we don't have clients asking to run Twitter ads, but we never did. It's not a service we offer, and I think because of like my personal brand, people are quite familiar going in with what we do and don't do. Um, Twitter's a really interesting one. It's one of those where I wouldn't really bet against Elon Musk, given what he's done with Tesla and other companies, and you think, like this seems on the face of it like an easier company to succeed with than than those ones. So I wouldn't bet against it, but it's hard to say with these things. I really don't know what's going to happen the long term Twitter. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably going to continue to be a thing and slightly grow, and that'll be that. But who knows?
Well, what's his plan for Twitter, right? So Elon Musk wants to turn it into the WeChat of the Western world. Basically, it's a one app. It's called X. Yeah. And it's going to have everything. It's going to have payments. It's going to have the social. It's going to have transportation passes. Everything you can think of, he wants to put it in one app. And he said it in a recent interview, and I think that's really interesting. And like you said, like Elon is not a guy that you want to bet against. So it's gonna be an interesting ride. One thing from my angle, and this is kind of an early bet, but this is something that I'm now teaching my students, is Microsoft ads, right? Bing ads. And in my opinion, with the rise of ChatGPT, and for those of you in the audience who don't know, Microsoft is their biggest investor in OpenAI. And with the rise of ChatGPT, there is basically going to be two behemoths. And right now, the search market is dominated by Google. And Microsoft is going to steal a lot of the search because of ChatGPT. They're going to bring on a lot of these advertisers. Now, for the longest time, yes, the cost per clicks were lower, but it wasn't even worth it to run Microsoft ads because there was just not enough people for you to focus your attention on. Yeah. And now I feel like that over the next 24 months, we would start seeing more of a 70-30 split, something that's okay. This is not a percentage of potential clients that I can just miss out on and just ignore. So I'd love to get your take on it.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. It could happen, certainly, what you described. I feel that people's behaviours are pretty rooted. So it does not to say that they wouldn't shift, but to shift away from Google for their search activity, I think they'd need to feel like they were getting a significantly superior experience. And I'm skeptical that that will be delivered, especially given Google's... I know they haven't done so great with Bard so far, and the reviews aren't very good with their sort of competitor, let's say, to ChatGPT. But I think Google, similar to Microsoft, right? Huge company, monstrous resources, all the data in the world, very well positioned to win in this space, but they could not do it. So I'm not so sure it will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I think whichever company executes better and provides the better experience will end up doing a lot better. Historically, that's been Google for a long time now, and as you say, up till now they've dominated search so heavily. Could it change? Sure, it could definitely change, and if it did, then yeah, we would certainly be running ads on different platforms as they evolve. I'm not confident it will happen though.
Yeah, and I think that when we're thinking about this comparison, it's not like Microsoft all of a sudden is going to chew out 60% of the search in the world. No, what all they need is another 10, 15, maybe 20% of search in order to become a big enough player for everyone to know this. And what my take is, be ahead of the curve. Just allocate maybe 5-10% of your budget. Learn this platform. It's very similar to running Google Ads in terms of the UI, in terms of the features, in terms of a lot of the things that are running on in the back end. And if you see success, great. You would see that it'll cost you way less to acquire clients than it is on Google, which is a very saturated market, especially in the local services. You know, sometimes I see people in the HVAC industry, in the roofing industry, is like paying huge amounts of money. Where sometimes I tell them, listen, guys, it doesn't make financial sense. Like, and I know it's painful, but at the end of the day, we're here to make a profit. And if the numbers don't add up, just let's try a different avenue. Either Facebook ads, which a lot of times you can get maybe not the best quality of leads as you would with Google ads, but you would get it at a cheaper cost. Or on top of it, you also play the long-term game with your local SEO, which, it takes time, but these things, at the end of the day, they pay out really, really big dividends if you put in the time and effort. So, I don't know. Like you said, like we really don't know, but this is my bet for the next 24 months is that we'll see more search going into Microsoft, not to a point where they're outbidding Google, but they don't need to, because Google is the 500-pound gorilla in the room, and all they need is just take a little bit of what they have in order to succeed.
Yeah, you're definitely right. As you say, for particularly a lot of local businesses, the search volume's just been so low that it's not feasible. But if it gains just a bit, that would make a big difference. And you're dead right as well about, I remember a classic line. I can't remember it word for word, but it was along the lines of, there are so many businesses just about breaking even on their campaigns, and they're basically generating all these clients, doing all this business, expending all this effort, and all their profit is effectively going to the ad platform, because that's it got the natural equilibrium of the market was to get to the point where it was just about break even for the average person. So yeah, there are certainly times when the cost of advertising can be prohibitively expensive, and there are times where the ad campaigns just simply need to do better, or you need to raise your prices or look at it differently so that you can achieve that profit margin, factoring in the cost of the advertising. But yeah, changing up platforms is often a good way to go. With a lot of those local service businesses, particularly in those really expensive markets, the average cost per click can be monstrous on Google, and Facebook can be a better way to go because you will get leads way cheaper, most likely. Yeah.
And of course, don't get me wrong, a lot of the service business that come to me, they come with, let's say, 5 to 7% conversion rate. And our average in our program average is 33% conversion rate. So it's like 1 out of 3 clicks. Yeah. So it raises up where it's like, okay, now it becomes profitable. But even then, for some industries, like, it just doesn't make sense. So if your conversion rate is very low, your cost per click is super high, and like, first improve your ability to generate leads. Make sure that you've maximized your potential in this field. And if after all factors you see that it just doesn't make sense, well, maybe you just need to cut it. But yeah, if you're still hovering around the 5-7% conversion rate for a service business, there's much more than you could do. Rather than just flipping to a new platform. That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I would say a lot of businesses fall into that category where it's not working and they just blame the platform, right? When actually there's a lot that could be done to improve that. I mean, one of the big things that I'm always talking about with clients and trying to improve is your average customer value, because that just feeds back into so much stuff. It's one of the reasons why when I first started running ad campaigns for my mum's interior design business, they were so successful. It's because clients are worth 50 grand, 75 grand. Like, these are big projects. So you only need a handful of clients, or one client would pay for the ads for the whole year. So there's often a lot of things that can be done, not just in the ad campaign itself, but landing pages, and also on the deliverable side of things that can make a huge difference, make it profitable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and this is something that a lot of business owners overlook it, because they're just trying to acquire new clients, where one of the main focuses should be on how to increase the lifetime value of your existing clientele, because this is, it's you're leaving money on the table, basically, if you're not doing it, if you're not offering either a subscription model or an upsell or cross sell or whatever it is, because there are a lot of things that you can do with your existing clientele that could increase your net profit at the end of the day by 10, 15, maybe even 20% easy, just by you doing like few simple things.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Facebook ads, which is obviously your expertise more than anything else, I think. 2023, broad versus targeted for the service industry people. What's your take on it?
So for most local businesses, local service businesses, I think broad's going to be the way to go. A lot of it just comes down to audience size. So if you're advertising in a town that's got, say, 100,000 people, you can't really narrow that down much. It's just, you don't want to be advertising to 15,000 people. It's just going to be tricky. Now, if your whole town where you live is 15,000 people, then fine, just target them. Like, don't think you can't run ads. But you don't want to make your audience smaller than you need to. If you're advertising in the middle of New York or London and there's millions and millions of people, then yes, I think it makes sense to test some detailed targeting options. You can afford to narrow that audience down and still have a plenty large enough audience. But I do think most local service businesses are going to see better results with broad. Basically more or less based on audience size more than anything else.
Love it. Love it. Image versus video.
Yeah, so I like to match the complexity of the ad creative to the ask. So what is it that you're advertising? If it's a car cleaning service, not very expensive, very easy to say yes to, we want to go with nice, simple ad creative that people can take a glance at, go, yep, that's for me, click on it, and then take the action. If you're asking for something quite a bit more complex, that's either a larger investment, there needs to be more trust there, then we would normally lean more towards video, because in video you can just get a lot more across. You can demonstrate the previous work that you've done. You can explain the benefits associated with your service. You can maybe include client testimonials. There's all sorts of things you can put in there that's going to really help not just generate the lead in the first place, but those people also are more likely to convert once they do get into your lead cycle process.
Landing page versus Messenger versus Facebook lead form.
My recommendation is definitely to test lead form versus landing page. With Messenger, I feel like that really is quite reliant on the business itself, and you can set up chatbots to engage automatically, but it's probably going to lead to something that requires a human being to be involved at some point, even if you have some like initial filter questions and things like that. So that really depends on what they have resource wise. But otherwise, I would recommend testing lead form versus landing page. The classic trade-off is landing page is going to get better quality, lead form is going to get more quantity. So often it depends what it is that you're looking to optimize for. I do think that as time goes on, we're going to lean more and more towards lead forms. Meta wants us to do that. They want us to keep people in app. And I think as people get more and more familiar with that, from the user standpoint, the cost of those is going to keep going down. So I think if you'd asked me that 3 years ago, I'd have definitely been landing page. Now I'm sort of test both. And I think in 3 years' time, I might be much more go with the lead form options. You get better data. You get the tracking's perfect because it's all in app. There's no, iOS devices dropping out or anything like that. So yeah, but we're still in a place where I would test both. I would still say that most of our clients looking to generate leads would be sending people to a landing page as opposed to a lead form, but not all.
Beautiful. Budget split between retargeting and cold audiences.
So I think that really depends on what size warm audiences you have. I don't want to give like an 80-20 split and then someone's just gotten started and they have almost no warm audience, 20% is way too much. Or they're a big brand and 20% is way too little. They should be spending more like 40%. So I quite like for that reason to use CBO, what's now called Advantage Campaign Budget, put a retargeting ad set in alongside cold audience ad sets and allow Meta to allocate budget according to performance. That way you're more or less guaranteed to spend the right amount on retargeting. But if you don't want to do that and you want to keep things separate, I'd start small on the retargeting, see what the results are like. If your cost per conversion is well below what it is on your cold audience, then you can sort of slowly increase the budget to the point where it gets maybe a bit more comparable. But yeah, that's sort of how I would think about that. I'd say the average is going to be something like 90-10 for the businesses we work with. 90% cold, 10% warm.
So you touched on my last question regarding this is ABO versus CBO. So campaign budget optimization or ad set. What's your take?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's really a wrong answer here. Again, a few years ago, I was very much like CBO, and now I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. There are pros and cons to each. With ABO, you have more control. There are certainly advantages to that. With CBO, you can benefit from automatic budget reallocation, which is nice. So I think that more probably comes down to personal preference. Do you want to have more control and have to monitor it and adjust budgets manually yourself more? In which case, go with ABO. If you want to sort of set it and allow that budget to be allocated according to performance, then CBO is the way to go.
Mm-hmm. And last technical question, like ROAS cycle for service businesses. How do you see it? Because again, like for me, when I'm thinking of Facebook ads, especially in with the service industry that I work with, I'm telling people is that it takes longer for them to see the return on ad spend than you would see with Google Ads, which is almost immediately. So think of it 30, 60, 90 days. Sometimes it could take longer. Sometimes it can take, especially in my industry, it could take up to a year to see return on ad spend. Yeah. Why? Because people have seen your ads for months before they feel confident enough to reach out. So I want to know from your experience for the service industry, what's your advice on that?
Yeah, I think that's good advice what you said, and I think it's very dangerous to look at the short-term ROAS on these things, particularly if you're, a lot of local service businesses are going to be things to do with people's homes. These are sort of big expenditures for people, and there'll be lots of people that you're advertising to that, I don't know, want to have a new kitchen, let's say, but they might have it done now, they might have it done in 6 months, they might have it done in 2 years' time. Maybe they need to save a bit more money. There's all sorts of reasons why people hold off on things and wait to do things. So I think that when you're looking at what you're getting back from an ad campaign, you do want to set some sort of parameter based on what a typical lead time is. So if on average you convert a lead, say 3 weeks after they initially get in touch, I would start with that as being like a monitoring point. Okay, we're going to look at 3 weeks because that's what we're going to get on average. But just you have to factor in that's going to be well underreported in terms of what you're going to generate over the longer term because of all those people that come in. So what I would like to see if I'm running a campaign is, okay, things are looking okay at this 30-day mark, let's say. But we know it's going to be significantly better later on and factor that in. And let's say things are not quite where you need them to be, that's okay. What you don't want to do is go, I know the ROAS will be better a year after we run an ad campaign, therefore I'm going to completely ignore the data that we get at 30 days or 60 days. That's silly, because those results need to be somewhat positive, somewhat moving in the right direction in order for you to want to continue with this, but they don't need to be there yet. So I think it's very much, people often say to me, they say like, how long do you wait before you turn off an ad, for example? And my answer is always, well, it depends how it's performing. If we need to hit $30 cost per lead is the maximum we can pay, and we're at 33, I'd give that ad more time. We could improve it, that could drop, absolutely fine. If we need to hit $30 cost per lead and it's at 120, okay, fine. Well, like, right, we can kill it. So the time that you leave something is going to depend on how far off your target you actually are. The closer you are, the longer you can leave it. So that's why I would be looking at those shorter time frames, 30 days, 60 days, but just be aware that you want to be showing decent signs. It doesn't need to be there yet. That will improve over the long run. So it's a little bit complicated, and it's a bit of a subjective process where you are sort of getting a feel for things. But that's what I'd say.
Love it. Ben, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for this. Obvious question, where can people find you? I know you said that other than your YouTube, you also have your Facebook group.
Yeah. So my YouTube channel is my name, Ben Heath. Facebook group is called Facebook Ads Mastermind Group. And then if anyone's interested in our services or anything along those lines, it's heathmedia.co.uk. So yeah, I mean, thank you very much for having me. It's been fun to chat.
Amazing. Thank you guys. As always, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you here in our next video. Peace.